Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're gonna talk about population that lived in Britain and how they changed the language from Iberians to Normans.
The Iberians was the first inhabitants of Britain. They arrived 2000 years before Christ from Mesopotamia, Egypt, Spain. They arrived because the soil was fertile, the climate was mild. They were hunter and fisher. Especially they hunted the fowl and they built more temple like Stone Age. Stone Age is a very important architectonic structure for their time. They were known for the tin, the pearl and the gold. They started a new age of civilization with the iron work. After the Iberians arrived in Britain, the Celts. The Celts arrived 1000 years before Christ. They arrived from north. In fact, they were tall and muscular. They had a blonde hair and blue eyes, and their society were divided in clans. Each clan had a leader, and in their society, the women were equal to men. They lived in huts, and they believed in Druidism. Druidism was a religion, and they believed in immortality of soul. They believed in natural elements like water, earth, fire, and they practice hunting, fishing, and agriculture. They started to speak Gaelic. Gaelic is a Irish language, and in our time, a lot of school in Ireland studied the Gaelic.
In 55 and 54 BC, the Romans conquered Ireland under Emperor Claudius. Roman Britain included present-day England and Wales. Unable to overcome the fierce peaks of Caledonia, Scotland, the Romans built a wall to defend the province of Britannia under Emperor Hadrian. Hadrian's wall runs from coast to coast, making the northernmost frontier of the Roman Empire. The Romans brought their civilization to Britain, building towns, roads, stone villas, and aqueducts. Christianity was introduced into Britain by the Romans. Pope Gregory the Great sent a monk named Augustine to convert the people of Britain. The Roman Britons had been driven to the western part of England, and St. Patrick organized a church among the Celts of Ireland. The Romans gave to language a lot of place names. Towns like Chester, Manchester, Winchester, and Worcester were originally Roman military camps, and so their names come from the Latin word castra. Words deriving from Anglo-Saxon usually refer to concrete things, while words of Latin origin often express abstract concepts. While a lot of words of Latin origin are used in the written English, spoken English has a strong preference for words of Anglo-Saxon origin.
At the beginning of 5th century, in England arrived some tribes that came from north. They were called Anglo-Saxon. They arrived and killed the inhabitants and drove them in Welsh and Cornwall. They wiped out the Roman civilization, except for three elements: the commercial center of London, Romans Road, and Welsh Christianity. In fact, Christianity returns in 597, thanks to Pope Gregory, that sent St. Augustine and St. Patrick in Ireland and in England to report the Christianity. Anglo-Saxons were fishermen and farmers, but sometimes they became pirates. And England was divided in 7 kingdoms: Essex, Sussex, Wessex, Mercia, Kent, Eastambria, and Northumbria. And the terms England became from Anglo-Saxon terms Anglo and land, which means the land of the angels. Anglo-Saxons spoke Old English, that is a Germanic language, and so, unlike modern English contains a few Latin words, But in modern English there are some examples of Old English, like the possessive case. Apart of that, there are little in common between the two language, and so Old English has to be learned and as a separate language. If you look some lines of poetry of prose of the Anglo-Saxon, you can find some strange letters that are called runes. Runes, in fact, were letters that were used in Northern Europe, but they continue to has been used in Middle English. Anglo-Saxon spoke Old English, that was a Germanic language, and so unlike modern English contains a few Latin words, but in modern English there are some examples of Old English, like the possessive case. Apart of that, there are little in common between the two languages, and so Old English has to be learned as a separate language. If you look some lines of poetry of prose of the Anglo-Saxon, you can find some strange letters that are called runes. Runes, in fact, are letters that were used in north of Europe, but they continue to be used in Middle English.
Vikings were known as the bad guys of the history because they raped women and they raided villages. In 1793 they arrived in Britain. They came by longboat from the North Sea. They arrived in the holy island of Lindisfarne and they attacked the monastery of Lindisfarne, killing priests, raping women, and killing and making slave the other people. They also steal all the things that had a value. At the beginning they didn't plan to settle in Britain, but lately they started to think that it was a great place, so they settled in the east and the north of the Northumbria. In 1813 they fight with King Harold the Great and they lost. King Harold won and put the Vikings in limited borders. During this period they made the Day Law, so they started to trade with other peoples and Anglo-Saxon people, but the Anglo-Saxon was too difficult for the Vikings that spoke Old Norse. So some of the difficult Anglo-Saxon words were changed, and difficult suffixes were cropped, and were added preposition like to and from, and the suffix son at the end of a name. During the law, Anglo-Saxon and Vikings had to trade, so the Anglo-Saxon words were changed to simplify it. More difficult endings words were cropped and were added suffix like son at the ending of a name to indicate the relation with a family, or were added the preposition like to or from. During this period there were four important kings. One of them is the King Canute, that was the first Viking king that ruled all the England.
The Vikings, William, the Duke of Normandy, was crowned on Christmas Day in Westminster Abbey in 1066. For this reason, England became an English territory. The Normans introduced the feudal system and they built a lot of castles to defend their conqueror. In 1085, William commissioned a survey of the land because he would calculated how much money he could cash out. The result of this survey was published 1 year later in Domesday Book. The Anglo-Saxons defeated were reduced to the condition of serfs, so they was deprived of their property and rights. The feud is the name of the land or a person held under the king. So William introduced that all land belonged to the king to be portioned out his followers, who promised him loyalty, amount of money and a unit of fightmen. The serfs have any wages, but he can cultivate a few strips of the land for themselves. The Normans brought their languages, the Norman French. The French and the Latin was the language spoken in the church and the government. The Middle English is less difficult than Old English. The only difficult is its spelling. It's described phonetic. The transition from Old English to Middle English wasn't immediately in 1066 when William was crowned, but the languages evolved continuously. Old English is also spoken by people, but for the literature it was prepared the French and the Latin. Middle English isn't a standard languages, but it have a lot of dialect, from each different from the other. After William succeeded his son, William II, so he was a violent man. Succeeded him is young Henry, so he was the first who born in England and the first who speak English and French. Succeeded him Stephen. Stephen lost control, and succeeded him Henry II. He dominated French and he had a struggle with the church. So for this reason he have a row with the Archbishop of Canterbury. When the Archbishop died, Henry held responsible. To Henry II succeeded his son Richard I. He have military abilities, but he was absent from England because he cruised in Palestine and fighting in French to regain it. When he did, her brother Prince John became a king, but he lost the French possession, and imposed the tax to pay military expedition. The people rebelled to it, and in 1250 the Prince John signed the Magna Carta,